Based on this study, the independent variable is age of house in 2015. The dependent variable is sales price. The objective of this study is to determine next to obtain the source graph that's suitable for the data. Next is to find value measures of central tendency, position, dispersion, and skewness. Next is to determine the correlation and regression of the data.
Next, we will talk about methodology. In methodology, we will discuss about three things, which is data description, graphical techniques, and numerical techniques. This study needs us to analyze the relationship between sales price and age of house in 2015. This variable is quantitative variable because it can be measured and it is a discrete variable. Sales price is dependent variables while age of house in 2015 is independent variables. In this data description, we will discuss about population, samples, data collection method, sampling technique, measurement skills, and variables. For the population that involved in the study is all the houses, while the samples is sales price and age of house in 2015. For the data collection method, there is no data collection method since the data is already given. Sources of data. The source of this data is secondary data because it is already given. For the sampling technique, there is no sampling technique either since it was a secondary data. For the measurement skills, there is two measurement skills involved in this study. First, sales price will be ratio scale while age of house in 2015 will be interval scale. Then for the variables, we already mentioned just now that we have two variables, which is sales price and age of house in 2015. This variable is a discrete variable because it is countable and it is quantitative. Next, we will discuss about the graphical technique. Graphical technique is a method that frequently used to illustrate results. The graph is presenting data in a visual way using charts and graphs for this technique. I already illustrate two types of graph. The first one is histogram, while the other one is scatter diagram. First, we will talk about the histogram. There are two graphs for the histogram, where the first one is frequency will be the y-axis, while sales price will be on the x-axis. The second one is where the frequency will be on the y-axis, while the age of house in 2015 will be on the x-axis. The variables in x-axis represent the class boundary. Next, for the scatter diagram, based on the figure below, the scatter diagram shows a negative skewness between two variables. So, this is proof that when the age of house increase, the sales price will decrease.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Izzatul Husna binti Khairul Anwar and I represent about numerical technique. There are six types of numerical technique. We will discuss the first types of numerical technique, which is measure of central tendency. There are three types of central tendency, which is median, mean, and mode. It can be calculated both on group and ungrouped data. Mean is known as the average of the data and can be calculated by using the formula as shown below. Next, median is the median value in an ordered array of observation and can be calculated by the formula by using the formula below. Last mode is the value that occurs more frequently in a set of observation. Using the highest frequency of data and can be calculated using the formula as shown below. The second type of numerical technique is measure of position. Measure of position is quarter that divide the data set into 4 equal classes. There are 3 quarters in measure of position. For the first quarter, 25% of the observation are lower and 75% of the observation are bigger. For second quarter is half and half or can be called as median, while the third quarter were the opposite for the first quarter. In order to calculate the quarter, we need to find the location either ungroup or group data using the formula below. Then we can substitute it into the quarter formula as shown below. The third type is measure of dispersion. It is to calculate the average degree of dispersion by the mean data. There are 3 types of measure of dispersion. The first one is range. Range is the difference between the highest and the lowest data and also use extreme values. It can be calculated on both group and ungrouped data by using formula below. Second is variance. It is the sum of the square deviation of the data divided by n-1. It also can be calculated in both group and ungrouped data by using the formula as shown below. The third is the standard deviation. It is the square root of variance in the same unit as the data raw. Numerical technique is measure of skewness. Measure of skewness is to calculate the Pearson coefficient of skewness, or the symbol of it is R, to determine the shape of the distribution. It can be calculated by using 2 formulas. The first one is coefficient equal to mean minus mode and divide by standard deviation. The second formula is 3 multiplied by mean minus mode and divide by standard deviation. The fifth type is correlation. Correlation is to find the presence of a relationship between variables or to measure the direction and the extent of linear association between 2 variables in a population or sample. There are several types of correlation coefficient, which is Pearson product moment correlation coefficient. This can only measure the strength of linear relationship between 2 variables by using the formula below. The other one is Spearman's coefficient of rank correlation. This was to determine the correlation based on rank because variables was not always can be displayed in terms of x and y. It can instead be ranked in order of size or anything. To find it, we must calculate the difference, which is d, by using the formula d is equal to rank x minus rank y. After that, we can determine the value of Spearman's coefficient of rank correlation by using the formula below. Last type is simple linear regression. It is used to describe the relationship between 2 variables, which is simple and multiple relationship. It also used to predict a dependent and independent variables. There are 2 things in simple linear regression. The first one is fitting the simple linear regression using the least square method. There are 2 formulas in each, which is population linear regression as shown below and least square regression. The second thing is coefficient of determination. It is a unit that measures the proportion of variation in y that is explained by the independent variable x in the regression model. It can be calculated by using the formula below.
So, I would like to present about our data. As we can see here, the dependent variable is sale price and the independent variable is age of house in 2015. Both of these variable is quantitative data. The data shows that sale price depends on age of house in 2015. This shows objective for the first one, which is the sale price, and age of house, which have been analysis. Descriptive statistic analysis. From the data we obtain, we will analyze the relationship between age of house in 2015 and sale price. This involves the measure of tendency, measure of dispersion, measure of position, and lastly, range for the variables. So, for sales of price part, the mean is 303,942.50. For the median is 262,750.00 and for the mode is 150,000. Measure of dispersion can also be seen in the table. For example, the range is 409,000 and the standard deviation will be 134,352.72. From this table, we can see the three objectives is answered. For age of house in 2050 part, we can see mean is 44.7, for the median is 43, and lastly, mode also is 43. Measure of dispersion can also be seen in this table. For example, the variance is 298.74 and the range is 75 and standard deviation will be 70.28. From this table, the three objectives is also been answered. Next, here we can see a graph. From the scatter plot diagram, we can interpret that it is a negative correlation between age of house in 2015 and sale price. It indirectly answers second objective. Next, for the correlation, value R we obtain, the value is negative 0.639. This shows that the variable have a moderate negative relationship between the variables. On the other hand, for the coefficient determination R square, the value that we obtain is 0.409. This value determines the ratio of the total variation. This answer for the second objective. For the coefficient, let y equal to sales price, let x equal to age of house in 2050, and linear regression equation will be y equal to 526,030.47 minus 4,968.41x. The common value of slope will be when age of house is increased, sale price will decrease. Also, model summary for Pearson product moment correlation coefficient is R equal to negative 0.639. The interpretation will be there is a moderate negative relationship between age of house in 2050 and sale price. For coefficient of determination, R square is 40.9% and the comment will be 40.9% of variation number of sale price can be explained by the variation of age of house in 2050. The remaining 59.1% is explained by another factor.